Ladies and gentlemen, Season 5 is here in Call of Duty Mobile, so naturally we've got our top 10 guns in the game, which we'll be breaking down in today's video. If you guys want to see more Call of Duty Mobile content like this, make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll go ahead and hop into it. First up, we got some honorable mentions. If I'm being completely honest, the balance changes for this season did not change a whole lot in regards to the meta, but there are a couple guns that got slight buffs that you guys should definitely give a try. The BK-57 got a chest multiplier buff, which now means that it is going to be capable of 3-tapping without landing a headshot, which is obviously a huge W. The M13 got a 15% bullet impact buff. For those of you who don't know what that means, basically the higher a weapon's bullet impact, the more hit flinch it causes to their opponent, making it more difficult to win head-to-head gunfights. Naturally, with the M13 already being a fan favorite, this is one that's going to make it that much more popular. We've also got honorable mentions for a couple of guns that we mentioned previously, such as the UL-736, which is no question still a top-tier LMG, as well as the QXR, Switchblade, and Kilo, which were all in last season's honorable mentions as well. While a lot of our guns in the top 10 guns are going to be the same, we do have some reorderings here just based on the ways that the meta is changing, the most advantageous playstyles in the game, and just general changes in opinion based on the way that guns are being used in ranked. Coming in at number 10, we've got the Fennec. Obviously, this is one that's kind of been up and down in our top 10 guns recently. No question, the Fennec is still a top-tier SMG, but as always, this is a gun that is going to thrive a lot more easily whenever you have a top-tier blueprint for it, and because the majority of those blueprints are either legendary or mythic, combined with the restrictions of the range on the weapon, especially given how lopsided the meta is toward assault rifles right now, it's tough to put the Fennec any higher. Coming in at number 9, we've got the Grau. Obviously, this is one that's been in our list for a bit as well, and while it's not a gun that's going to dominate in any one particular range, it's a super solid option. Number 1, for free-to-play players, because we do have a super solid rank reward for it. Number 2, because you have customizable iron sights depending on the barrel that you choose, and actually the best barrel in the game, being the Archangel barrel for the Grau, has the best iron sights as well. While it's certainly not the best assault rifle in the game, the Grau gives you a lot of flexibility in a lot of situations and can be used effectively in just about any mode as well. Coming in at number 8 is a gun that I feel like is kind of climbing in the rankings for me. The R9 shotgun is one that previously I hadn't really felt super strongly about. Naturally, shotguns don't typically make their way onto this list very often just because of how limited they are by their range, but the more comfortable that I've gotten with the R9, especially now that I understand that you do have to hold down the shoot button to get those fast shots in succession, the more I feel like it's possible to dominate with this gun even when you're taking some mid-range gunfights, which is kind of crazy to say about a shotgun. Anybody who's been watching the competitive scene knows that this is one that's been dominating for a while there as well, and as pro players have gotten more and more comfortable with it, they've found ways to make it dominate on more maps as well. So if you haven't given this one a try yet, I would definitely recommend it. Coming in at number 7 is a gun that I don't think is ever going to leave the top 10 guns of the game with the way things are going right now. The SKS is one of those weapons, just seems to be untouchable as far as buffs and nerfs go. And while it's not a gun that you're ever going to see a ton of people using in rank, because number 1, it's a higher skill gap weapon, which naturally means most people are not going to want to use it. And number 2, it's one that usually is going to be a lot more powerful in the hands of somebody that's playing Claw, because it's so difficult to use because of the tap fire nature of the weapon. There's no question it's still the long range king of COD Mobile. Just an honorable mention to go in here. I have seen more people talking about the tap fire options for both the AMAX and the AS Val as of recently. So if you're willing to sacrifice a little bit of rate of fire for a little bit more accuracy, those are 2 options that are definitely worth looking into as well. Coming in at number 6, we have another assault rifle in a very assault rifle dominated list. This is one that I had ranked a little bit higher last time, but having used it and also having understood that it is much better with the mythic version, the Type 19 is one that I do have down a couple spots on this list for a few reasons. First off, obviously the Type 19 doesn't have the best iron sights in the game. Even the battle pass version of it is less than ideal, so more often than not you're going to find yourself running a red dot if you don't have that mythic variant. Number 2, for all intents and purposes, is pretty much just a slightly upgraded version of the Grau. It's very comparable in a lot of different stats, and the biggest upside is its 3-tap potential, but obviously that's going to be primarily when you're able to land headshots, which is not something you can really rely on a consistent basis. Much like the Grau, the Type 19 is not something that's going to dominate in any particular range, but is a very solid all-around gun. Has pretty good mobility for an assault rifle because it has Black Ops attachments. It's got a lot of versatility in the ways you can build it out. And like I said, if you do have the mythic variant, then this is something that can be an absolute laser beam because you do have the ability to add on that 1 extra attachment. However, just because it doesn't really have much of a prime range, it's tough for me to put it any higher on the list than we have it right here. Next up at number number 5, we got another assault rifle, the only 2-tap assault rifle in the game, and yet again another gun that's going to be much better if you've got a mythic version. Fun fact, COD Mobile likes to make guns that have mythic variants the best guns in the game. The Odin's a meta that arose in the midst of China Masters, and one that we've seen dominate all the way through ESL Masters as well. A lot of people didn't realize that it was even going to be as dominant as it was, but there's a very small hand multiplier that actually made it a lot better than it was previously because of how much it increased the 2-shot capability, and because of that, the Odin is now a gun that you're going to see a lot, whether it's in ranked or competitive. Obviously, the big downside of the Odin is its rate of fire and the fact that if you do miss a shot, it instantly becomes a lot more punishing. With that being said, 2 shots to kill is very, very fast, and it has a much faster rate of fire than the SKS. So in the hands of the correct player, this thing is an absolute shredder. Coming in at number 4, we've got our second SMG on the list, and one that, especially when it comes to search and destroy, has become an absolute nightmare for a lot of people. The Burst Mag CX9 is one of the most infuriating weapons to go against when you're going against somebody that knows how to use it the right way. Even though the CX9 has a mythic version, you don't actually need it for it to be most effective. There's a lot of versions, including the base, that have a clean iron sight, and while it is nice to have a free red dot, it's not something that I really feel like is an absolute must-have for the CX9. The 12-round burst is the attachment that makes this as strong as it is, making it incredibly fast killing whenever you land a 1 burst, and even when follow-up shots are necessary, the time to kill does not get dropped by that much, and the magazine also gives you a significant boost to your movement speed. I do say that this makes a better S&D gun than it does a respawn gun, because once again, only having 12 bullets to work with is less than ideal, especially if you need to reload after really more than 4 gunfights. It's very rare you're going to be able to get multiple kills per magazine, so because of that, this is a gun that does thrive significantly more in search and destroy than it does in respawn. Coming in at number 3, we do have a weapon that actually got a nerf this season, but it's a nerf so small, for me, it really only dropped the gun 1 spot in my top 10 guns. The MG42 is a weapon that I still fully expect is going to dominate in this season of COD Mobile. Mythic version or not, the MG42 is an absolute laser beam. The combination of its rate of fire and the number of different attachments that have major upsides make this thing a nightmare in a lot of different scenarios. The primary nerfs that the weapon received were to its rate of fire attachments for the barrel and for the muzzle, but from the pro players that I had talked to even prior to the buffs and nerfs, the majority of them weren't even using those attachments in the first place. While it might be nice to shoot a little bit faster, there are some big time changes. While it might be nice to shoot a little bit faster, there are some big time upsides for so many of the different attachments that you have, especially for the magazine and the barrel, that you can build this thing to have really solid range and accuracy while at the same time still having ridiculously fast rate of fire. Being an LMG, it is going to thrive more in the long range, but can absolutely work in a pinch in the close range as well. Coming in at number 2 on the list, yet another assault rifle, and one that has been at the top of our top 10 guns for quite a few months now. I don't think anybody is going to be surprised to see that the DRH has not gone anywhere. Very easy 3-tap potential, great range, great bullet spread accuracy, great mobility. There's not really any downsides to the DRH. If you were going to pick one, it would be the rate of fire, but all those other statistics more than make up for it. And as far as ease of use, this is definitely one of the best overall guns in the game, on top of the fact that we also have a legendary for it that was obtainable for free last season. The base version has great iron sights. There's legendary options that are super clean as well. It's kind of tough to say anything bad about the DRH. I would say if we were making a top 10 free-to-play guns, this would probably be our number 1 option, just because of how clean the base irons are and the fact that we have a legendary. But naturally, in the number 1 spot, once again, is going to be the HVK. The large caliber magazine makes it so this is actually able to 2-tap to the head whenever you land 2 headshots. It has a faster rate of fire than the DRH, so even though it does have slightly lower possibility of 3-tapping, that additional rate of fire more than makes up for it. Very low recoil. The wombo combo of these two has made it so that SMG users really don't have much of a choice but to switch to ARs, at least in higher SBM. The one thing I will say about the HVK is the cartridge crusher kind of feels like a must-use if you have it. Something about that blueprint just makes it feel so much smoother, which is part of the reason that I said if I was going to make a free-to-play best options, I would go with the DRH. HVK with a red dot is not a bad alternative either, but the base irons just aren't quite as clean as those of the DRH. That's going to wrap up our top 10 guns video, though. Hope you guys did enjoy. Make sure to subscribe for more COD Mobile content, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.